Depending on the severity, an insect sting can be a minor annoyance, an excruciatingly painful experience, or in some of the worst cases, a potentially deadly situation. Thankfully, most insects don't sting you just for the fun of it, and their venom is a crucial weapon to keep them safe, and sometimes it helps them to subdue their prey. Most normal human beings understandably choose to avoid stinging insects because of the potential danger, but thankfully there are some wildlife experts and weirdos that love to get stung by some of the insects with the most potent venom. Some of these people include Coyote Peterson and Mark Vins of the Brave Wilderness channel here on YouTube, and another was entomologist Justin Schmidt. Justin was the author of the Schmidt Pain Index along with a few other fascinating books about insects and their defenses, and during his career he was stung over 1,000 times by 80 to 100 different species. With this data, he created the Schmidt Pain Index, which is still the best source that we have to rank how painful insect stings really are. In today's video, I'll be using the index and a few other sources to rank some of the most painful stings in the world, and to find our first insect, we'll be heading over to Eastern Australia. The giant bull ant is a species that really lives up to its name, as some of the larger individuals can reach up to 3 centimeters in length. The chances of being stung by one of these bulldog ants is relatively high, as they are pretty abundant across eastern Australia. They were one of the first Australian ants that was studied by Western scientists, with the first specimen being collected all the way back in 1770. You might notice just by looking at these insects that you not only have to worry about their sting, as their bite is also pretty powerful too. When they do sting humans, they tend to latch on with their mandibles and sting multiple times, and unlike some other insects, they can do this without coming to harm. They use their potent venom for self-defense and to incapacitate their prey, which usually comes in the form of other insects and sometimes spiders. Mr. Schmidt rated the giant bull ant as number 2 on the pain index, describing its sting as intense, ripping, and sharp. Mark Vins of the Brave Wilderness team also took a sting from one of these insects, and I think it's safe to say that it doesn't look like a fun experience. I'd just like to show appreciation for Mark and the whole Brave Wilderness team, because no matter how painful or intense the stings and bites from the animals that they feature are, they always make sure that the animal is okay and they put it back in the container with care. Most insects are unable to claim human lives unless the victim endures a substantial amount of stings, or if the victim goes into anaphylactic shock. It's estimated that around 3 to 6 people have lost their lives to these ants after going into shock, but for most people the pain lasts for around 6 hours and then your life will return to normal. These angry ants slot in at number 7, and the insect stings only get more painful from here on out. The velvet ants are a group of insects with a very confusing name, as they're actually a giant group of wasps. The wingless females resemble giant fuzzy ants, hence their name, whereas the males take the form of a more conventional wasp but with a very interesting paint job. Unlike some other wasps, they don't really feed on other insects, and most of their diet consists of flower nectar and other sugary fluids. This shows us that their venom is only really used for self-defense, and it's a weapon that you really don't want to be on the end of. With their diet of nectar and juices, it's easy to view these insects as peaceful creatures, but they do have a dark side too. They are brood parasites, with the females laying their eggs in the nests of other wasps such as the grand cicada killer, and then their larvae will feed on the host's larvae until there are none left. The fact that the females put themselves in the firing line of other wasps is part of the reason why they have such potent venom, and their inability to fly away and escape threats is another. Now there are over 7,000 species in the velvet ant family, but we'll be focusing on the species that can inflict the most painful sting. Klug's velvet ant can be found in South and Central North America, with them being particularly common in Texas. Coyote Peterson from the Brave Wilderness team was stung by a velvet ant and clearly felt the full force of the feisty insect, but the velvet ant in question didn't appear to be Klug's velvet ant. Justin Schmidt, on the other hand, did test it and he ranked it as a 3 on the pain index, and he described it as explosive and compared it to spilling hot frying oil across the skin. These insects have the nickname of cow killer because of the potency of their venom, but thankfully they don't actually kill cows. So if you happen to see these beautiful creatures in the wild, then it's best to leave them alone, unless you happen to be a ground nesting wasp, because then I'd recommend attacking. To find our next insect, we won't have to travel to anywhere at all, as we'll be focusing on another North American wasp that can pack a punch. Tarantula hawks are not tarantulas or hawks, as instead they are a group of spider wasps that spend most of their days swooping down from the skies and tackling tarantulas like a hawk. To tackle such dangerous and beefy prey, they need to be large, and some of the larger specimens can reach up to 6.5 centimeters in length. What's even more impressive is the size of their stingers, with the females possessing a weapon that can measure over a centimeter in length. Just like the previously featured velvet ants, the adults almost exclusively feed on nectar and other plant matter, which makes the tarantula hunting seem a bit strange at first. When these wasps attack tarantulas, they paralyze them with their venom, and then they continue to drag the spider into a burrow before laying eggs on it and sealing the nest. When her eggs hatch, the larva will eat the body of the tarantula, and this has to be one of the nastiest ways for any animal to go. Thankfully for humans like you and me, they are generally quite docile if you don't have 8 legs, and they take quite a lot of provoking before they choose to sting you. This was made very clear in the Brave Wilderness video where Coyote Peterson gets stung by a large Tarantula Hawk, as most wasps would have stung him a lot sooner than this individual did. Mr. Schmidt ranked the Tarantula Hawk at number 4 on his pain index, which is actually the highest score that any insect can reach. He described the pain as blinding, fierce, and shockingly electric, but there's a reason why this nectar-loving insect doesn't rank higher on the list. Despite the fact that the pain is clearly excruciating, the worst of it is over in only around 5 minutes, which means that a sting from this wasp is nowhere near as scary as some of the other insects featured. So really, their venom is powerful but short-lived, and the Tarantula Hawk is fit for the 5th place spot. To find our next species, we'll be heading down to Central and South America, as we'll be taking a look at an insect that has a name that's very fitting for this video. The warrior wasp has a pretty unassuming appearance, being mostly jet black, and the structures that they make are pretty good at blending into their environment too. Their nests are described as looking like an armadillo, and they are usually attached to trees where they blend in perfectly with the bark. If you choose to approach one of these nests, then it's likely that you'll get a bit of a fright, as the warrior wasps will beat their wings in unison, creating a drum-like rhythm. This military-style defensive display is how they get their name of warrior wasps, and if you choose to ignore this warning, then you're in store for one of the most painful insect stings in the world. Like most insects, the warrior wasp doesn't actually want to sting you if it doesn't have to, and its barbed stinger means that a sting can actually injure the wasp itself. This is why they rely on their unique defensive strategy so frequently, because stinging is not only inconvenient as it can also cause injury. Because these insects thrive in dense rainforests, they very rarely encounter humans, and this may be part of the reason why they have never been linked to a human fatality. Of course, the Brave Wilderness team had to test the power of this insect's punch, and once again both Coyote and Mark were stung by this insect on separate occasions. Mark actually took multiple stings due to the insect hanging on with its mandibles and not letting go, and you can imagine that it would only be worse if a whole swarm attacked you at once. Unsurprisingly, the warrior wasp ranked at number 4 on Schmidt's pain index, and Mr. Schmidt famously wrote that it feels like being chained in the flow of an active volcano. It even made him question why he started the list in the first place, which shows you just how painful it must have been. Thankfully, the most intense pain from a warrior wasp sting will subside in around 2 hours, but you might feel a dull aching pain for a few days afterwards. So really, these rainforest inhabitants just want to be left alone, but if you push them to their limit, then they'll give you a sting that you won't forget. To find our next deadly insect, we'll be heading overseas to the forests and mountains of Asia, as we'll be taking a look at the largest hornet in the world. The Asian giant hornet also goes by the name of the murder hornet, and this is because it's responsible for one of the highest numbers of direct fatal reactions globally. It's estimated that around 30 to 50 people lose their lives to these giant insects each year, and this is both from the effects of anaphylactic shock and the venom directly. A single giant Asian hornet does not have enough venom to take down a healthy adult, but if the victim sustains multiple stings from different hornets, then the venom can prove fatal even if the victim isn't allergic. What makes these hornets even more terrifying is their size, because as their name suggests, they are giant with a max length of 5 centimeters and a wingspan of 7.5 centimeters. Only the females possess stingers, which can measure up to 6 millimeters long. Unlike some of the previously featured flying insects, they will feed on other insects as well as plant matter, and they have become famous because of the battles that they have with bees. In a one-on-one battle, the bees don't really stand a chance, but by working together they can surround the larger hornets and cause them to overheat by vibrating their flight muscles. Thankfully, Asian giant hornets aren't that aggressive towards humans unless they feel like their nests are in danger, but if you do get stung by one of these buzzy girls, then you aren't going to forget it. Amazingly, both Mark Vince and Coyote Peterson of the Brave Wilderness channel took a sting from this insect, with Mark describing it as worse than a bullet ant sting. Strangely, the Asian giant hornet was one of the few insects that Mr. Justin Schmidt was not stung by, but by judging the reaction of the Brave Wilderness team, I think it's fair to say that it would be a 4 on the Schmidt pain index. The worst of the pain from this sting can last a few hours before it eventually starts to fade, and if it lasted longer, then this hornet would rank even higher up on the list. So the largest hornet in the world is fit for the 3rd place spot, and it's clear to see why they are so feared across their range. The bullet ant has become famous around the world for one reason in particular, and that's because its sting is said to feel like being shot with a real gun. As well as being known for the pain that they can inflict on their victims, they are also among the largest ants on Earth, with some of the largest specimens reaching 3 centimeters in length. A bullet ant colony is relatively small compared to other ant species, with there usually being around a few hundred to 1,000 in one colony. The majority of their diet consists of plant matter, but sometimes they will use their incredibly potent venom to take down and paralyze animals as large as frogs. You have to be pretty brave to voluntarily take a sting from a bullet ant, and in a coming-of-age ceremony known as the Tukandera ritual, young boys around the age of 12 are stung by hundreds of ants at once. When you're stung by a bullet ant, the most extreme pain lasts for around 10 to 15 minutes, but waves of pain can last for up to 24 hours after getting stung. Both the excruciating pain and the length that it lasts is why they are so high up on this list, but this doesn't stop some wildlife experts and enthusiasts from experiencing the pain for themselves. Unsurprisingly, both Coyote Peterson and Mark Vince of the Brave Wilderness team experienced the pain for themselves, and Mr. Justin Schmidt ranked the bullet ant sting as the worst insect sting that he had ever experienced. He ranked the bullet ant sting at 4+, and said it was like walking over flaming charcoal with a 3-inch nail embedded in your heel. You'd assume that with this rating, the bullet ant would be number 1 on the list, but there's one other insect that rivals it. For our next species, we can remain in the rainforests of Central and South America, as we'll be taking a look at another wasp with a badass name. The executioner wasp has quite a few things in common with the previously featured warrior wasp, as they are mostly docile insects that will only sting as a last resort. Of course, it's a completely different story if you happen to be another insect in their ecosystem, as there's a rather brutal reason behind how they get their name. Even though the adults mostly feed on sugary liquids to sustain themselves, they will hunt other insects and spiders to feed their young. When they find a target, they will use their toothed mandibles to decapitate their prey, which is how they get their heavy metal yet accurate name. They are the largest neotropical paper wasp, being able to reach a maximum length of around 3.5 centimeters. Surprisingly, they never actually use their potent sting to subdue their prey, as instead it's only used to protect themselves and their nests. They do live in colonies, but their colony sizes are tiny compared to most other eusocial insects, with there usually only being around 3 to 13 members in an executioner wasp's colony. Amazingly, the Brave Wilderness team were just finished filming the warrior wasp segment when they encountered an executioner wasp, and without hesitating, Coyote decided to catch the wasp and he got stung again. Coyote's reaction to the sting was one of the scariest on the Brave Wilderness channel, and he went on to say that the bullet ant had been dethroned. Unfortunately, Mr. Justin Schmidt was never stung by an executioner wasp, but it would have almost certainly come in at number 4 on the index. Coyote Peterson has to be one of the few people in the world that have been stung by both the executioner wasp and the bullet ant, and if he says that it's worse than the bullet ant sting, then we have to take his word for it. He claimed that the long-term effects of the venom lasted for over a week and left him with a scar, so not only does it cause some of the most intense pain that you can receive from an insect, but the venom can affect you for an astonishing amount of time. For this reason, the executioner wasp claims the first place spot, but you'll really have to annoy it to feel the full force of its sting. Really, this video wouldn't have been possible without the research from the Brave Wilderness team and of course Justin Schmidt, and I'd like to dedicate this video to Mr. Schmidt, who passed away in 2023. Without his work and his curiosity, we would know a lot less about insects and their incredible defenses, and after reading interviews from him, it was clear to see that he loved what he did and he had a great sense of humour. If you believe that I should have featured any other insects, then feel free to let me know down below. But for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.